I'm Helen Kinsman, this year, the president this year and next year. Also welcome to our invited guest, John Allen, director of the JFK Museum in Hyannis, Jackie Beebe, our town administrator, Bill O'Shea, one of the Eastham selectmen, and I'm sorry, you?
Steve Wasby from the zoning board.
Okay.
Ed Schneiderhan from the zoning board.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and our officers, Dave Baxter, secretary, Jen Keene, treasurer, and then we have some of our board members. One I know is stuck in traffic before he even got to the bridge. We have Jean Tierney in the back, in the plaid shirt, Sue Connor, right there, Larry Pasco in the front as well. You probably met George Lee outside doing membership work. And Barbara Reed is in the back with the refreshments. I think I listed everybody who is in attendance today for the board. We're going to get right into our agenda for today. We have the minutes from the meeting of August 20th, 2016. Dave?
Thanks. I'm not going to read the entire minutes, so I think that would be a little bit boring for all of us, but it's in the packet that we created, so you guys can feel free to take that home, but right now I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
It's my first time.
It's my first time. I'm Jennifer Keene. I am the treasurer of Eparta. And up on the board, we will have our current income statement. And what you can see here, I'll keep my remarks short because I know you're here to listen to our speakers over here. But right now, as of June 30th, 2017, the first column here, we have income of $13,342. It's a little bit less than last year where we had over $20,000. Our expenses, the big expenses we have are our administrator costs, about $10,320 a year, and our newsletters, which everyone really likes. Those newsletters cost us about $4,000 a year. So we're on budget with that, about $2,016 for newsletters. If anyone can't see, we do have a couple, my son has a couple of copies. We're trying to be green and not print out as much, so I know most people don't look at this again. We do have a PayPal expense of about $207. Our marketing is also sending letters out to new part-time residents in Eastham, and sending them a newsletter so that they might join the Eastham part-time residents. Anyone have any questions? Basically, the way this shows is our January to June, and then the next column is our 2016 numbers, and then you can see the change since the year before, and then the whole 2017 budget, and then what would it be, half of that budget, and then the variance off of the 50% off of the 2017 budget. So we're running a little bit short on, well actually we're above what we thought for dues at this point, but most of our dues do come in the first half of the year. The next sheet is our balance sheet, and we are in good standing right now. We have $58,642 in assets, and we really don't have any liabilities. So that is an increase of $4,000 over the previous year from dues from 2015 and 2016. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay. So I will place the treasurer's report on file.
Do we need to get this approved?
And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. All right, speaking of the agenda and the other papers attached to them, as Jen mentioned, we're trying to be green. We're trying not to get as many printed out, and we're also going to ask that if you, if you would be so willing to leave your papers on your seat, we will collect them for recycling. If you don't care to take them home, that is. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're gonna go right into committee reports, and our first committee report is from George Lee, our membership chairman.
You want to talk about this? We're just like this.
Oh, sorry. TJ would like to see
No, we're going to skip this agenda item, right?
the bylaw.
No, we're just going to skip it.
I'm sorry.
We're going to skip it.
We're just going to skip it.
We're going to skip the bylaws.
Okay.
Okay, then George, why don't you come on up?
Good morning, everyone. The numbers we're talking about in this report are as of Thursday. We have a few additional members who have signed up today. We'd like to welcome them. Okay, so as of Thursday, we had 1,401 members, and you can see that 781 of them have paid their dues through 2017. 474 as of Thursday had paid their dues through last year, and then 146 had paid their dues through 2015. Those members will be removed from our list after the August meeting if they do not renew their membership. Also, we sent out 408 marketing letters to people who recently moved into Eastham, inviting them to join our group. And at this point, we've gotten approximately 40 new members from that group. And then if we look at the next slide, you can see how our membership numbers have progressed over the last few years, from a high of 1,441, we're now down a slight bit to 1,401. So, then the membership update. In the fall, we sent out 404 amnesty letters to people who were not currently up to date, and we got 130 of them to renew their membership. At this point, there are 3,600 part-time resident households in Eastham out of a total of 5,900, which means approximately 61% of the households are non-residents. A third of our members paid their 2017 dues through PayPal. We encourage you to use PayPal, since that way your dues are become current instantaneously. It also makes things easier for us as far as bookkeeping is concerned. So we would encourage you to use PayPal if possible. And okay, the other cool thing we encourage is that people get their newsletter electronically. It saves us money on postage. It also has the advantage for you of being able to share it with other family members or friends. At this point, you can see that we have 437 members receiving the newsletter electronically. 778 members receiving the newsletter electronically. 437 still receive it by mail, and 186 people haven't specified which they prefer, so our default is to still send it by mail. But again, we encourage people to let us know, and we will send you the newsletter electronically. And in order to do that, of course, we have to have good email addresses. And you can see that we have 53 people with bad email addresses. That means that when we send emails out, they are rejected. So as people came in this morning, we checked the email addresses, and presumably all of you have valid email addresses at this point. And 110 of our members have not given us an email address. That means that if we send out any bulletins about what's going on in town, we will not receive them since we have no way of contacting you in a timely fashion. Okay. So once again, remember that this is a volunteer organization, and we're always looking for people to join us on the board. So if any of you are so inclined, please talk to one of the members of the board, and we'd be glad to take your name and contact you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Next, we have a proposed rental tax update by Dave Baxter.
Okay, so how many people know about the rental tax proposal? Okay, basically what I can say about this is there's a lot of different possible proposals that are around. The one that I've spoken about here, I think, is the one that's most in the news recently. It's a bill in the House in Massachusetts. It's number 3454, and it's being co-sponsored by 3 different members, one of whom is Julian Sear from the Cape and the Islands. He's our senator. And right now, this is looking to propose a state excise tax and then a local tax. It would be for non-professionally managed properties. It would be around 9%. This is still being considered. It was in the budget or in the Financial Services Committee. It had been removed for this year, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it couldn't be added back in. So at the end of the day, the long and the short of it is, there's a lot of interest in proposing and then implementing taxation on rental properties for short-term rentals, typically under 60 days. And it's probably something that eventually is going to happen here on the Cape and in Massachusetts. And basically, it's not known exactly when it'll happen, but it's something we should be keeping our eyes on and making ourselves aware of, getting ready for. There's a lot of information that's available on the website of weneedavacation.com. They have Q&As, they have a blog that they keep updated with recent information from various meetings and changes and things that are held by the different legislators. So I would recommend, for really up-to-date information, you go there, and that would let you stay in touch with the most current action on the items. Any questions or anything? Sure.
Is the form of the bill a vote of town meeting to accept it? Or is it just the state will vote it and that's the way it is?
It's actually, I think, both. I think at the state level, there's one tax, and then at the local level, it'll be approved on by different towns in Massachusetts.
Yeah, has our group taken a position on this?
Yeah.
The EPRTA doesn't necessarily take a position. Our mission is to make our members aware of situations that they might want to contact their senator about, contact any other legislators, but we do not, according to our mission statement, we don't take a stand on things per se. because obviously our membership is varied widely, and that's what we do. Yes?
I understand that the town had a position in a town meeting in regards to this proposal. I don't remember whether it was pro or con.
Jackie, correct me if I'm mistaken, but it seems like a year or two ago, the town did approve
a version of it. But it was a totally different version than is being proposed now by the state.
Okay, so would they have to reapprove the
Yes.
new version? Okay. I thought that they had approved it when it first came out. They were just waiting for the legislature to approve the statewide, and then it could be implemented in the town. But since it's a new bill, very different from the old one, it has to be reapproved at the town level. Yes.
Just for a point of information, how many EPRTA members are Massachusetts residents?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
How many EPRTA members are Massachusetts residents?
It's a good question. I don't think we know right now, but we can find out and put it in one of our newsletters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps our group should at least consider the possibility of changing our goals so that we can take a position on things that seem to be important to us as a group.
We'll take that into consideration.
What was the question?
Oh, we couldn't hear the question, I'm sorry. The gentleman asked that maybe we should consider changing our goals as an organization.
So that positions that may be relevant and important.
To positions that will be relevant to our members. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that okay, Nick? I know you got the answer first and then you got the question. Okay? Okay, so we're all set. We're going to move on. The next thing on the agenda is the newsletter update. Dave Crimmins was our member that is stuck in traffic on 495. So I just want to, first of all, I want to say I'm sure we all really enjoy his newsletter. It's extremely informative, not only about political issues happening in town, but also articles of interest in the whole Lower Cape area. He does a wonderful job on that. Our next one is going to be coming out just after the 1st of August. And that issue will also include the bylaws, I should say. Unfortunately, he's not here. He also said that if there is anyone who has something that they would like to see in the newsletter, to contact him. He has a website, or he has an email address on the website. If you have any other articles that you would like to see in the newsletter. And that comes out 4 times a year, as Jen had mentioned. Okay? We have 2 people who have asked for a little bit of time at the podium, local organizations. The first one is Bob C. with Chapel in the Pines. I'm sure everyone knows Chapel in the Pines, the little yellow chapel next to the library.
Thank you, Helen, and thanks for giving me a couple of minutes to talk about the project at the chapel. Many of you know the Chapel in the Pines. You may not know that it is actually Captain Edward Penniman's church, and he was the one who organized it, designed, and had it built back in 1889. It's probably one of the most historic, intact buildings left in the town of East End. The Nauset Fellowship, which now owns the building, I'm president of the fellowship, bought it back in the 1970s when it was for sale on the real estate market, and we have maintained it ever since. Even though we do meet there every Sunday morning at 10, the chapel is home to many other organizations. Actually, every day of the year, there's a group meeting there. It's also home to the First Encounter Coffee House, which has been there for 43 years. And we really think it's an integral part of the community, and it's a beautiful building, many of us agree. Last year at town meeting, voters were very generous in granting us a historic preservation grant. The work is to begin in about a month. It will involve a re-roofing of the chapel, which we badly need, and return to some of the Victorian ornamentation that Captain Penniman had on the building in 1890. It also includes handicapped access, a new handicap bathroom, an upgraded kitchen, and lots of other improvements to the building that we hope will keep it useful for many years into the future. We are raising some money to complete the project for expenses that are not covered by the grant. We're hoping to raise about $100,000. Some of that will go into a maintenance fund that will be used to maintain the building in the future. So we have these brochures in the back table, which has an explanation of the project, and we're looking for your generous tax-deductible donation to help us reach the goal, and we hope to complete this by next year. If any of you have any questions, you're always invited to visit the chapel, and if you'd like to see me afterward, I can answer some questions for you, but I'll leave these brochures on the table in the back, and if you pick one up, I'd appreciate it. It explains the whole project. Thank you very much.
We have Maggie, are you coming? Or maybe both Maggie and Fred. Fred Fenlon and Maggie Downey, they are from the Cape Light Compact. I think you may know them from past meetings. Cape Light Compact is the umbrella organization that all of the towns on the Cape and the islands belong to, and this group purchases our electrical power for us. They also oversee the energy audits, which I hope many of you have taken advantage of. I know I have in the past, and it greatly reduced our energy use at our house.
Again, my name is Fred Fenlon, and I represent the Cape Light Compact for Eastham. We deal a great deal with reducing your energy, and that, in essence, reduces your bill. And today, we're very fortunate to have with us the CEO and President of the Cape Light Compact, Maggie Downey.
CEO, thanks for the, well, not really the CEO, the actually administrator of the Cape Light Compact. Fred, thanks for the promotion, though. I'm going to be very quick. I know you have, I'm standing between you and the sunshine, which is coming out today, by the way. So I think you actually gave my presentation. I'm going to be very succinct. The towns on the Cape and Vineyard run the energy efficiency programs, and every month when we pay our electric bill, we pay into a fund that is then stays on the Cape and Vineyard and is reinvested for energy efficiency programs. So people like Fred, who's been your long-standing representative, help design these programs. We do them in 3-year plans, and we are in the second of our 3-year plan, so we'll be beginning next year. Hopefully this time next year we'll be asking for input, maybe through your newsletter, on what you would like to see in the next step for energy efficiency. So on the back table, I have a card. How many people have not had an energy assessment of their home? Ooh, that's a lot. So there's a card back there. There's a number on everything from the night lights to the phones. These are your programs. You're paying for them. You should give us a call. The assessment, since you've already paid for it, is at no cost. A trained technician will come out and evaluate your home for opportunities to reduce your energy consumption. It's through insulation, air sealing, and lighting improvements. There are rebates for heating equipment. There's also a heat loan. The heat loan is a up to $25,000 7-year loan. It's a 0-interest loan. We use the monies to buy down the interest for energy efficiency improvements. If you need a new heating system. Windows, there's a cap, but you can also replace windows with that. Again, these are our monies, and Fred has worked with the board from all over the Cape and Vineyard to be very creative on how to design that program. This is a great brochure. I love it because if you open it up, it really talks about everything that we will do when we come out to the house, so please help yourself. Right now we're running a summer sizzler, and basically what that is we took the cap off the insulation. So right now the cap is up to $4,000. We pay 75%, you pay 25%. Well, now through September 21st, so summer, June to September, you can get as much insulation as you actually need, so there's no cap. And we would pay 75% of that cost, and the homeowner pays 25%. So again, I strongly encourage you, these are our dollars. If nothing else, have an assessment. You're entitled to them once a year. to find out that your home is efficient and there's not much you can do. But again, it's just a reassurance of your investment. And then the last thing I'd just like to say is we also are your power supply provider. We're the second page on your electric bill, should you choose to stay with the compact. But this January, through the help of Fred and some other board members, we negotiated 100% renewable green energy contract. So we are matching our energy use with 100% renewable energy. So we encourage you, and it is below basic service right now, so it's a nice affordable package. So I encourage you to come check us out, and I'll be in the back if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're going on to our guest speaker right now. As I mentioned before, it is John Allen from the JFK Museum. And as everyone is aware, I'm sure that this year, 2017, is the centenary of JFK's birth. And Hyannis and Cape Cod greatly shaped his life through his childhood and into his adulthood, from family vacations, relaxation, and even to the point where his home in Hyannisport was the summer White House. John comes to us, born and raised in Rochester, New York. He had a career in community and regional banking before becoming a financial planner in both Massachusetts and New York State, and he's been a resident of Cotuit since 2001. And he has been executive director of the JFK Museum since 2012. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for having me, and this certainly is JFK legacy here all around us with the National Seashore. It's been a fun year, and for me, like many of you here, I started coming here on holiday. In fact, driving in, I saw the cars with the bikes on the back and the beach chairs on the roof and the windows all covered with stuff. They were packed as I was driving in. It brought back a lot of memories. But we moved here. I commuted to New York and Boston up through 2012 from Cotuit. And I decided I didn't want to retire. I was past that age, but I wanted to do something that was important for the Cape. And this role found me after about 3 months of riding a bike. And so since 4.5 years, I'm the museum guy. And it's been probably one of the most important chapters in my life. It's particularly right now in the environment we have in the country, the sensitivity to leadership, the sensitivity to civic engagement and civics overall, and certainly the legacy of JFK here on the Cape. You know, we've got a great opportunity. We really have a history that will be 25 years this month that it was put in place, and it really started as a visitor center to the question when people come to Cape, well, where's the compound? And everyone knows you can't find it because it's just not available to the public. So this museum started, and then 4.5 years ago, a foundation that had been formed bought the museum, and we now run it as a private museum. We're the third most visited private location on the Cape. We have well over 60,000 visitors. About 25% are from outside the U.S. and growing. This year with the 100th centennial, it is very busy. And you know, we're an important economic point for Hyannis and Cape Cod, and certainly team up with the Cape Cod Chamber in many ways in hosting visitors from around the world who want to come here and see JFK's home place and certainly the legacy of it here on the Cape. We really have looked at the mission in 3 ways, and I'm certainly proud of where we're going, and most importantly is to have a first-rate museum. We have engaged an exhibit designer. Well, you would come to the museum if you haven't already. Please come. You'll find the exhibits are the quality you would find in New York or Chicago. We've got the opportunity for adding more artifacts as we grow the institution. Secondly, we're building out an active cultural program. We have speaker series. This year it's a little bit lighter because of the centennial year, but in fact next week on the 20th, Sergei Khrushchev will be here at Hyannis, and we're having him on the 19th in Falmouth at the Falmouth Academy. And obviously there's a great topic of Russia today, and so we expect it to be very active. We've had him, this will be the third time we've had him. He draws a crowd of 300 to 400 people in active Q&A. So if you haven't made your reservation, just go right online and do that. It's limited to 300 this year, and we expect to sell out and we have a reception. And it's a great way, that and other programs where we bring to people who live on the Cape or have active second homes on the Cape, a great cultural connection that you might find in Boston. What we're doing, started last December, is we started streaming the JFK Forum programs that are in Boston. So you don't have to drive to Boston. You can come to the museum, we stream them right in. We have an active Q&A connection so that you can be participating as if you were sitting in that program. And a year from now, we'll be completing on the lower level an auditorium and a media center, as well as a community room, so we can actually have larger audiences. The other aspect is education. And we've been active over the last 3 years of building up programs and activities for middle school, high school, and this year we started adding 1 through 5 with curricula, with activities to really focus on one history. There's the American history of John F. Kennedy as president. We talk a lot about civics. We talk a lot about having a voice. We're really getting them into understanding how democracy works and encouraging them to be involved. And I love being here at this forum because this is what it's all about, is to have a voice and get engaged. And so with that, we're also making sure that when all of us in this room look at an image of JFK or come to the museum, what you see, you don't need to read because it comes right back at you in emotion. But with the younger people, we want to make sure we're passing that legacy on. And it's been a delight for me to be doing that. This year's exhibit, JFK at 100, Life and Legacy, is really, make your own decision, but I think it's a very compelling, it's very emotional. People come out of there and they have a clear connection with important memories. We've put up a map of the world, and we've asked people to put colored Post-it notes up of a building, a school, a boulevard, a park that's JFK in their town or in their country. And we've had to pull them off 3 times because it got so full. People putting up the names of that. It's really wonderful to see, and it's a great way to understand the impact and certainly the currency of his legacy today and engagement. And the other part is we're doing the collaborations around the Cape, like we talked about in Falmouth. We're doing with the Museum on the Green. If you're going up to Provincetown at the PAM Museum, we have an exhibit that they've collaborated with us on in the library. So they've opened up in the Ross Moffett exhibit area a JFK Centennial exhibit. It'll be there through Labor Day, so take a look at it. It's very spectacular. We were there last week for the kind of the grand opening. It's very powerful, and it has some very unique artifacts that we frankly haven't shown in the museum because we were just given to those by the interior designer, Rose Kennedy, and Jackie Kennedy. So there's some notes in there, and there's some correspondence and activities that this name is Robert Ludington did with Jackie Kennedy and the president that were quite interesting. When we look at where we're going and kind of wrapping up, we certainly have more to do in the sense of updating the museum. We do have some fundraising going on for that. On August 7th, we're having at the Wauquasit Resort an auction. And what we're going to be auctioning is furniture and art pieces that were reconstituted from salvage from a restoration and preservation project at President Kennedy's home. It's now owned by Ted and Kiki Kennedy Jr. And the work was done through 2013, and they saved everything that came out of the house. So we've engaged nearly 40 artists on Cape Cod to do the repurposing and the reconstituting, and we'll have about 35 of those on auction, and plus a silent auction. But they're beautiful pieces. You'll start seeing them on the website. Check them out if you're into Kennedy. These are going to be authentic pieces of connection to President Kennedy, and we expect a big turnout. In fact, it'll be an online, national, and likely international event as well. We've got Eldred as our auctioneer. So with that, I'll end by saying that we're really glad to be here. I'm glad to be here talking about the museum. We're proud of what it represents to the Cape. People come to Cape Cod, and this connection of John F. Kennedy is far from going away. I'm really happy that our museum is part of that. But also we can point to this little part of the Cape, the Lower Cape, that was protected by President Kennedy. And we have that up as one of the legacies since his death. And it's kind of interesting that even though he died in '63, his legacy is still very rich and very vivid. And it's our focus to, one, keep it relevant. We want to bring community of Cape Cod around JFK. We want to have authentic connection and authentic representation, but we also have to be disruptive in the sense of new technology, in the interactivity, and the way we can use our website and the streaming capability to make it a richer experience. So that's our focus right now. I'm glad to answer any questions if there's time for that. If not, I certainly would welcome you. Just if you want a private tour, say get John downstairs, and I might be there anyway. But it's something I hope you'll find that's well worth coming. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, John. Very interesting. John's got a run. He's got a big day at the museum today. So, okay. In our next part of the program, we have our town officials. Jackie Beebe, this is her first year as the town administrator. She's been our assistant town administrator for the last couple of years prior to this, but she's doing a wonderful job so far since Sheila retired in the early spring.
Thank you.
Oh, may I also say that while Jackie is speaking, and she also is going to be hearing from the zoning people, if you have any questions, members of the board of directors have index cards, and if you let them know, they will hand you an index card to fill out your question and collect them and give them to Jackie. She will answer them at the end of the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting to be here. I know that for many years Sheila came and was an impressive speaker for you guys, and I have huge shoes to fill. Luckily though, I have some advantages. I have a fantastic board of selectmen who are very supportive of me, and I also have an amazing town staff, some of which I hope I'll be bringing to you in August so that you get to meet them and get to know them. And know that we have a deep bench, so no worries. Today I have with me the chairman of my board of selectmen, Bill O'Shea, and two gentlemen, members of the zoning board of appeals for the town of Eastham, Steve Wasby and Ed Schneider-Han. They're going to be talking to you a little bit about some recent zoning issues. And our town planner, and he wears many other hats, Paul Lag, who will be sort of, after they talk, he'll be doing some cleanup on telling you what's going on, how the town is planning to address some of our development issues and get sort of some arms around and control that influx of development that we're seeing with the new water system. So I'm going to just sort of do a brief summary, then I'll turn it over to Steve and Ed, and then we'll finish with Paul, and then I'll come back and do questions, okay? So since the spring, since I've taken over as town administrator, we did have a very positive town meeting. There wasn't too much on the agenda in terms of big ticket items this year. We didn't have any very large capital projects or anything to report on. But we did vote positively an operating budget and a good capital plan for the next year. We also, town meeting approved CPA funding for the Purcell housing project, and that's going to be off of Brackett Road. There'll be a little pocket park in front, and then the housing is set back in more of a village townhouse style. CPA did grant $300,000 for that project going forward, and we are waiting to hear from the state. We should be hearing in early August whether it passed through the first round of tax credit financing. If it didn't, then that would delay the project another year. And most projects don't get approved in the first round, but we're hoping. We have a really good project. It was perceived and received very favorably from the state, so we're hoping that we will be one of the lucky ones and that that project will move forward. And the second thing that was approved was a small playground project for the Cape Cod Children's Place, which provides, affordable child care services for the Outer Cape, and really is a fantastic resource for our town residents as well as for other residents in the other lower and Outer Cape towns. They just also did, with the town's help, a new renovation and addition to their building over off Nauset Road, and it is beautiful. We just went to the opening a month or so ago, and it's really fantastic. A couple of big items that are coming up that were approved, one of which was approved at town meeting, is the Cape Cod Technical School. I don't know if any of you have read about that, but they are moving forward with a very large renovation, almost completely new building, basically, for Harwich, which serves all of Cape Cod, mostly from Dennis down, but other towns as well. That will be a ballot question this fall. All the towns have to vote on that, and of course our percentage is very tiny compared to some of the other towns, but that will go forward this fall. And then the Nauset High School renovation project has just been accepted by the State School Building Authority for a preliminary study. So they'll begin a feasibility study of renovating Nauset High School this fall. That will not come before us for a vote for probably at least a couple of years, but it's on the horizon, so I wanted you to know about it. In terms of ongoing town projects, I wanted to just update you on our water project. We are about 90% complete with phase 1. At the end of phase 1, we'll have 2,100 parcels available to be hooked up to town water. We will have done all the water mains for the backbone of the system, completed the 2 well fields, the tower, and begun operations. So that is winding down this fall, and we should be finally complete with phase 1 sometime in November. November is also the first anniversary of properties that were allowed to hook up to our public water system. So we are currently, we have 549 active households receiving town water and about 70 in the process. So we're making eligible at least 50 homes a week. So if you want to check whether your home is on the list of a property that can hook up, if you go to our water website, which is, I can also give you this, but it's easthamwaterprojectweebly.com. I'm sorry, this easthamwaterproject.weebly.com. On that first page, you'll see all the lists of roads that are currently eligible, and we do have an online application process and online payment for that. Hookup is still free. You have to pay for the water to go to your house, but hookup is still free. Meters are still free for a calendar year after water passes by your house. So as soon as it's available to be hooked up, meters will be free for that first year to try and incentivize hookups. Yes, I'm sorry. It's easthamwaterproject.weebly.com. Where am I? The work remaining for phase 1 is to basically, we have a few Eastham residents in South Eastham that are receiving water from the Orleans water system. Once we have capacity, which is now, we must connect those people to our system. So that's a final step. We also have final paving and punch lists, and we need to complete all of our mandatory area connections, of which about 95% of those properties are already hooked up now. Our first water bills went out in June. I received one. I'm hoping that some of you did, and if you have any questions about that, I'd be glad to answer those. In terms of phase 2 work, which I think more homes will be eligible, we have been doing permitting for phase 2 for approximately 2 years now, in earnest for the past year. So when Sheila was talking to you last year, we were busy working on phase 2 already. And it looks like, other than one area where we have a spade-foot toad, which is an endangered species for Massachusetts, unfortunately it is on our tank site that we of course spent years trying to develop. So that will set us back time-wise a bit, but we're still on target for permitting the first of phase 2, which will be 3 contracts that will go out to bid in August and start construction in fall, probably late September, early October. You can also go on the website and look at, if you go click to other information when you're on that website, over on the top right of the menu, it'll show phase 2, and you can click on that and find out when your property is scheduled to be in the phase 2. Phase 2 is ahead of schedule. We're going to be making decisions about financing phase 2 in terms of pacing, but it looks like if we wanted to, we could complete phase 2 quicker than we anticipated. So that's a policy issue that the Board of Water Commissioners and the Board of Selectmen will be dealing with this fall, trying to decide, do we want to move faster, do we want to slow it down? Of course, trying to keep the tax rate as even as possible. And I forgot to tell you that phase 1, we spent $37 million of your hard-earned tax dollars. However, we are ahead of schedule and $4.8 million under budget as of today. So we're doing great with phase 1. Upcoming items other than water, of course, all of you know that as we go through and complete water, we are opening up every single road in Eastham. And that obviously presents huge challenges. We are paving as much as we can as we go and patching as much as we can as we go. But the board understands that we need to make a plan for the long term of repairing and replacing all of our town roads. So they will be working on, one of the things that we have invested in is a full assessment of every public road in Eastham. That was completed last year, and including a cost analysis of which roads should go first and how to fund those. So the board will be looking at that this year, and we anticipate either this town meeting or next year's town meeting in fiscal year 19, we'll be looking at a infrastructure project for that. We also need to develop a betterment program for the private roads that need to be repaved. In the course of the water system, what we've seen is that there's a huge difference in how some private roads were paved versus others. Of course, some weren't paved at all, and that's fine, but the ones that were, there's a wide variety of road conditions. So we're looking to, at this point, prepare some kind of betterment program so that private road owners who gather together and don't have the immediate funds to repair their own roads, the town may be able to assist with that. In terms of other things that are coming up, we have been working on a Rock Harbor study for many years, actually, but after the dredging, we renewed interest in that, looking at how to best make Rock Harbor more accessible and, frankly, develop it so that we get better use out of that beautiful natural harbor. The town has invested a lot of money picking up open space, purchasing and getting gifts of open space around the harbor, and so we're looking to make some improvements with permitting so that we can increase the boat dockage in that harbor, but also create some amenities such as perhaps a walking path, boardwalks over to the beach, whatever we can do to make that area a little bit more user-friendly. Of course, we have public water there now. We need to develop a little building for the harbor master and sort of improve that area. So that is a goal for both the Board of Selectmen and FinCom for this year, so that may be a town meeting article in the spring. We also need to do some improvements to our police station, which is an aging building and had some water issues a few years back, so we need to do some roof repairs and some renovation to the lower floor of that building, which is where the showers, locker rooms, storage area for the police is. So that may be packaged with the Rock Harbor improvements. And lastly, one of the things that the Board of Selectmen and I also feel is really important to do, given the fact that Sheila was here for 25 years and we do have a huge sea change and a lot of challenges ahead, is embark upon some kind of strategic planning process for the town to look at what's coming next, what are the priorities for residents and all taxpayers, and what do we need to focus on so that we place ourselves in the best possible position to deal with both the challenges and the opportunities that are coming over the next few years. So we're going to be beginning that. The Board of Selectmen is looking at a charge for a committee that will be moving forward to sort of form that process this month, and hopefully we'll be in full swing with that starting in the fall. We would love to have the Eastern Part-Time Resident Taxpayers Association involved in that process. So appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from your group going into town meeting and the quality of the reporting in your newsletter, and we'd love to have you involved in that. So we want to make a space for that somehow. I also, before I turn it over to the gentleman, I want to ask you to let me know and Bill know what you'd like to hear from the town in terms of your August meeting, so that I can bring the appropriate staff and we can, directly answer any concerns that you have. So I didn't bring either of the chiefs with me today, but I will bring one of them back in August, and whoever else you would like to hear from. One of the people that I did hire just recently is a new assistant who's also my finance director. He comes with a great finance background, very strong, and I will be introducing you to Mike in August too. He's hit the ground running and is doing a great job so far for us. So now I will turn it over to the ZBA for a few minutes. Steve Wasby and Ed Schneiderhand, and then Paul. And we'll do questions after you. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Steve Wasby. I am a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm a former chairman. We have actually a threefold presentation today. I'm going to talk a little bit about zoning board procedure. Some of you are familiar with it. Some of you, I'm sure, have gone. I don't recognize any faces out there who've been before us, but I'm sure there are some. Ed Schneiderhand, who's the present vice chair, will talk particularly about our actions on the 240B, that is affordable housing, comprehensive permit cases we had. And then our excellent town planner, Paul Lag, who provides us with staff help, is going to address the matter of Dollar General and of long-term planning, although I'll mention something about Dollar General specifically. Some of this is fairly basic, but I think it's important to understand, because people in town, even full-time residents, are sometimes not aware of who has the authority to do what. The Zoning Board of Appeals has 5 regular full members and 2 alternates. We meet once a month if we have business. Our next meeting, if you want to come see us do regular business, which I'll talk about in a second, is Thursday, August 3rd at 5 p.m. in Town Hall. Our routine regular business is people who want to changed their houses in some fashion. It could be everything from tear the house down and rebuild on the footprint. It might be an expansion triggered by certain rules as to when you have to come before us. And you will have first gone to the building commissioner, Tom Wingard, and if he says no, then what happens is that you appeal to us. Those are fairly routine. We are over and done with the case in one session. Sometimes we need a little bit more information and we take 2 sessions to get through that. That's the granting of special permits and variances. That is not general review of your property. Site plan review, as we call it, is something that the planning board does. Again, when whatever you're doing or the size of your property or the amount of the change triggers that provision. And the plan board meets usually twice a month because they do more work than we do. I said I mentioned something about the proposal for a Dollar General store, which, if you aren't familiar with the proposal, it would go essentially opposite Willie's in what is now a wooded area. And for those of you who remember, it's where the hot dog stand was. The ZBA and the plan board were both involved in that. The ZBA specifically because Dollar General said they wanted fewer parking spaces, 31, than the rules required, which was 51. We made fairly clear without a formal vote they weren't going to get what they wanted, and that got continued. In the interim, and here Paul will explain, the matter and then it was to go to the plan board for general site plan review. When that happens, they look at landscaping, they look at design, they look at traffic, they look at a whole wider range of things. Before that meeting could happen, the Board of Selectmen referred the matter to the Cape Cod Commission. And I'll leave the rest of that in terms of what that means for Paul to explain. Now, the primary reason why Ed and I are here tonight is not for the spiel that I just gave you. That's sort of background. It's because of the 2 comprehensive permits, so-called 40B after the state statute, for affordable housing. And when an applicant files a 40B application, we end up operating, the ZBA ends up operating under a very tight statutory framework. 180 days from the opening of hearing to the closing of public hearing, with another 40 days allowed for disposition. Now that may seem like a lot of time, but if you're looking at projects that can range from 60 to 100 plus units, which are bigger than what we have had in this town, and all of the work that's necessary, including getting peer review of, for example, traffic and drainage and matters of that sort, we were ending up meeting twice a month. At least I'm not asking for sympathy. It's a whole different ballgame. And the reason is, and this is if you take away any procedural point from my talk, the permitting authority on 40B is the Zoning Board of Appeals. It is not the Board of Selectmen. Now, as I'll explain in a minute, the Board of Selectmen can be very much involved. It is not town meeting. Although, in a way, concerning CPC money, town meeting can be involved. We say yay or nay. We had 2 projects that were running nearly simultaneously before us. One of them that Jackie has referred to, we refer to either as the Purcell property, which the town has owned for some time, or we refer to it as Penrose, which is the name of the developer. And the way that one happened is that the town put out an RFP There were 2 applicants. The town chose to work with Penrose. They reached a memorandum of agreement which took care of most matters, and only then did a formal application come to us. We ended up approving that project, and I will say, although it may sound as if I'm editorializing, they were wonderful to work with. Even though they already had the approvals from the Board of Selectmen, they were responsive, they were prompt, they made changes that we wanted, and we had no trouble approving that unanimously. And the town meeting, as has been mentioned, approved the grant of $300,000 of CPC money to them to assist with their costs. They'll probably be back for somewhat more. The far more contentious one was what you know as tea time, and what we know as Stratford from the name of the developer. I could say that's been nothing but grief. It has been an extremely difficult and contentious case. When, some of you know this history, but I probably should lay it out for you. When that was originally rolled out, and that's before there was a formal application, it was 130 units covering the entire 10 acres, that's a 10-acre parcel, in 2 phases, with a mix of large 3-story buildings, which would have been at the back of the property, and the rest townhouses. A lot of discussion involving the Board of Selectmen and a number of public hearings, and a lot of upset on the part of many townspeople, reduced that to about 110. Well, I'm not going to lead you through everything because it would take too long. Ultimately, what Stratford did was file an application for 50 units, 2 large buildings, which we joyfully call either barns or barracks. I'm stealing the term from one of my colleagues on the ZBA. And they repeatedly refused to tell us what, and it was to be on only 6 acres. They refused repeatedly to tell us what they were going to do with the other 4 acres. And there is the real possibility that if that goes through, I'm slightly out of sequence here, but let me finish the sentence. If that goes through, they could put another 2 buildings of that type on the remaining 4 acres. Long story short, we denied unanimously. They appealed. That appeal is pending. There have been some deferrals of key dates, and the rest I can't tell you because we've been in executive session and we can't talk about what's gone on in executive session. We have very considerable, competent help from town council who knows how to deal with 40Bs. One last piece that I need to tell you about that. You can get some sense of why we turned it down from what I've said. You'll hear more specifics from Ed. One of the things that was to be on the town meeting warrant was a proposal to spend $600,000 of CPC money. But remember, that's the money that comes when you bought a house. If you did it in the last, whatever that relevant period of time is. That was going to go forward, and then we denied. And that got pulled from the warrant. It is clear that if it hadn't been pulled from the warrant, some of us, including the person you're listening to, would have been on the floor of town meeting arguing against it. There's one other piece here. Stratford sought from neighboring towns to get money. And that would have been Orleans, Wellfleet, Brewster. I think that's as far as it went. They had items on their warrant. It would have, if all of those had been approved by town meeting, it would have been on the order of $200K, as I remember. Those all got pulled. So we are in the process of this appeal going forward. We're not in the best place. As you know, we have only a very small proportion of the amount of affordable housing that we are expected to have. And it is clear that the administrative bodies that will hear that appeal if it goes forward are favorably disposed toward the developer's perspective. So tune in. And now you'll hear more to follow that up. And yes, I violated my 5 minutes. If you have questions, write the questions out and they'll come to us and we'll be happy to answer them. We're not going to do it person by person.
Good morning. I'm Ed Schneider, Hand Vice Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Steve has given you a very good overview of the entire process that we've been going through for the last, bit over close to 2 years. We started working on creating regulations for 40B applications back in November of 2015, knowing that this type of activity would be coming to us. Steve gave an excellent overview of the entire project to date. For me, I will just kind of reiterate some of the basic reasons for the rejection. Doing so with concern to only keeping with that information that is currently within the denial letter that went to Stratford. And again, we'll go to Steve, did an excellent job. The applicant did present their proposals to the Board of Selectmen as well as the Planning Board. And that's the one Steve indicated before. He had the 2 large buildings in the back, and then everything else toward the front, toward Route 6 on the Tea-Time property. We're talking about that particular piece alone at this point. Would be townhomes, and it would develop the entire 10-acre parcel. By the time it actually got to us, it was then cut back to the 2 barracks, 3-story apartment buildings. If you look at that property, take a look at the left-hand side, it would be split essentially down the middle, approximately 6 acres used for the first phase. And the second half of the 4-acre parcel would be a separate, unidentified parcel of land that we had no knowledge of what could or would be placed upon it. The left-hand side had the 2 large buildings only, and that was really fairly close to Route 6, and is a very visible area, as you know, for the town. That was one very large sticking point. And I'd point out that in line with that, this is the Cape Cod Commission, the citizens, the Planning Board, all agreed that the massing of those buildings was totally improper for the town. Subsequently, we asked that they would return to a more appropriate original concept of housing of the large buildings in the back with some form of townhomes in the front that made it economically feasible for them to proceed. They suggested that they would go back and would take a look at it. At the very next public meeting, they didn't even bring it up. We had to bring it up again, and they said, no, we're not even going to discuss it. Basically, out. So this take it or leave it attitude pretty much persisted throughout the remaining 5 or 6 public hearings with that particular group. In general, the documentation that they gave us was the absolute minimum and left some concern about the ability of Stratford to really produce the product in the first place. But the biggest issue for us was Stratford, one of the big issues is Stratford would not be the managing partner after the construction. The managing partner after the construction would be the Community Development Partnership, just a local group, it's a local Cape group. They would be managing the 3-story, 2 3-story barracks. We asked for a management plan. We received a management plan that was adequate for a 10 to 20 unit low-rise cluster home or townhome project. Had no information at all about a 3-story apartment building, elevated building, single entrance, except for obviously extra fire exits and entrances, type of structure. When asked if they could please create that, they said that they did not have the financial resource or have the resources to create one at that time, and would create it later after we approved the plan and proceed with it. Okay. Essentially, that's the real crux of the thing. And I'm going to read something which I think everybody should hear. It's essentially the very first paragraph of the denial letter that was sent to Stratford Capital Group. And I quote, "The Eastham Zoning Board of Appeals unanimously 4-0 voted to deny the requested comprehensive permit for the subject property, which is located at 4790 State Highway, goes with a flat piece of land that is a critical part of Eastham's cultural landscape. Eastham is a small coastal village with approximately 5,000 year-round residents and expands to approximately 35,000 residents in the summer tourist season. Summer tourism is the lifeblood of Eastham's economy, and tourism depends upon the look and charm of Eastham as a most viable location, visible location in Eastham, and the project is entirely inappropriate in its height, its massing, and its design. The height and massing surpass any other existing residence in the town of Eastham, in particular, as any design could be." That is, now the entire document is about 25 pages long, but that is the very first paragraph, and it sets the basic foundation on why we denied the Stratford Group their application. When it comes to Penrose or the Purcell property, everything was just the opposite. And it's almost difficult to try to come up with some reasons why we didn't do it. Their presentation, they came to us, of course, as Steve mentioned, from an RFP created by the Board of Selectmen, and they also had a review committee that had various town residents, members of boards present on that committee, including the planning board. And one of the other, quite frankly, other applicants or participants in the RFP was also the Stratford Group. They were looking at also developing the Penrose property. The Board of Selectmen and the citizen group selected Penrose as the preferred builder of the Penrose property and build that out. They came to us with a project that included covering 10 acres of land, the entire 10 acres that's in there, as a one-time build-out. There would be 65 units. They are all basically townhome. Some of them do get to 3-story, but in a form that has separate entrances. It's more of a townhouse sort of structure. It would fit very nicely. The property, if you don't know where it is back behind the Dunkin' Donuts and that whole kind of place there. It goes all the way up to the Eastham Mercantile. It's a fairly large chunk of land. Very nice piece for what they're doing. The presentation that they made to the Board of Selectmen and to the committee, the select committee, was also exactly the same proposal that came before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Inasmuch we had a good set of documents to work with in the first place, everything we asked for, they provided. There was a point where the fire department was a little concerned about some of the entrances, whether they could get a gurney through in the event that they needed to do so. In the very next session, the Penrose people came in, was totally modified and changed doorways that allowed for the fire department to have its response. There was one other item I know as Bill would be interested in, and I was, as we took a look at a couple of the drawings, which are very detailed, and we noticed that there was something missing in all the apartments. and that was dishwashers. We suggested a dishwasher should be there, and in the very next meeting, they have redesigned every kitchen area and it included the dishwashers. They've been extremely responsive. The other function is that they will be with the project after construction. So after construction, they take over the management. Again, we asked for a management plan. We got a full management plan for the entire development. We had a residence handbook essentially, and we also received a pet care and maintenance document that exceeds all of the current bylaws for the town of Eastham. Excellent response. They're going to stay there, they're going to be there. It was an obvious decision to unanimously approve the Penrose application, and hopefully that will be funded shortly, I hope. It's a very good application. That's about where, as far as I can go, as far as what we're doing right now. Steve has already indicated that the Stratford group is, we are in litigation with them over our denial. We'll see how that goes. So, thank you.
Thank you. Paul Legg, I'm your town planner. I just want to quickly say we're extremely fortunate here in Eastham. We have a really dedicated group of folks that serve on your regulatory boards, and as you can see, they're very dedicated. They do their homework and they keep me on my toes, which I appreciate. So I want to just chat. It's delightful to be here this morning. Thank you for having me. I just want to chat with you briefly, give you a quick update on some of the other land use activity items that have been going on. It's been a busy year, as you've heard, with the 240Bs, but we also have some commercial development that's taken place. Most notably, you've probably noticed the new Cumberland Farms on the corner of Brackett Road. That's probably the single biggest new item out on Route 6. But we've also had a lot of regulatory permitting going through for some smaller locally owned businesses, and you'll start to see those. Max Seafood out on Route 6, and then some others that are going through the permitting process. So it's been busy, and you've heard about the Dollar General. Briefly on the Dollar General, as was mentioned, it's on the vacant piece of property roughly across from Willie's or the landmark fence. The proposal was for a 9,000 square foot retail building. It did start through our local permitting process, but it was eventually referred by the Board of Selectmen to the Cape Cod Commission, which is the regional planning agency for what they call a development of regional impact. The Cape Cod Commission a few weeks ago did vote to accept that referral. And so basically, as of right now, our local permitting is suspended until the Dollar General applicants file with the Cape Cod Commission and go through what they call the DRI review process. If it's approved at the county level, they refer back to they'll return back to Eastham, and they'll have to go through zoning board and planning board for site plan approval. And as was mentioned, through both the local and the county process, they're going to be looking at landscaping, parking design, site access, impact on community character, the architectural look of the building. So we really do a thorough traffic impact, a thorough vetting of the proposal. So as I said, on the local level, we're kind of in limbo until things progress at the county review level. So you've heard a lot about the different projects going through. This has really sparked a need to look at land use development in a more comprehensive, take a more comprehensive approach. So we're trying to be proactive, look at all of Eastham comprehensively in terms of what is the potential for land use development in the future, but also what's the potential for economic development. So we have two initiatives that we're going to be starting up in the next few weeks. Both of these initiatives are funded through grants that we received from the county. The first piece is what's called a technical assistance panel, and it's basically assistance provided by a group called the Urban Land Institute. It's a Boston-based nonprofit. And they assist the town. They will come down, work with us, meet with stakeholders, review the town, and basically they're going to be kind of doing an audit of Eastham, what we have, what our strengths, our weaknesses are, our assets in terms of physical assets, environmental assets, our infrastructure, and they're going to help us formulate some plans of how we can do a better job at creating a master plan, looking at ways to broaden the tax base and kind of leverage our strengths here in town so that we can have development and potential that's more in line with what the community would like to see. So that's the first piece. The second piece keys off of this technical assistance panel, and that's going to be an effort to look at the zoning in the North Eastham area where the majority of all this development is taking place. So the Cape Cod Commission is going to be working with myself and the regulatory boards to look at our current zoning and analyze, again, the strengths, the weaknesses, try to come up with some amendments and some guidelines that can help foster development that's more in line with what the long-range plan is for North Eastham. So things that we're looking to do is incentivize development that'll be more of a village style or mixed-use style development in North Eastham. The benefits to that kind of style development is that it consolidates development in a tighter area. So we reduce the sprawl along Route 6 and creates opportunities to have better traffic management, consolidate curb cuts and traffic management in and out of areas along Route 6. It also sets us up in a better spot in the future to better manage wastewater, which is going to be another big issue coming down the road for Eastham. And so if we can consolidate development in a tighter spot, we really set ourselves up for better infrastructure in the future. It's also a key piece of development for affordable housing and just really trying to diversify our housing stock. We really have, the majority of what we have are single-family homes, but in order to meet the affordable housing, as you've seen, we have the 240Bs, but really we still need to make efforts to diversify the housing stock. So having a more village-style mixed-use development along Route 6 creates the potential for apartments and sort of top-of-the-shop housing, as you may hear it referred to. So those are the two big initiatives that we're hoping to start up in the next 2 weeks, and we're hoping that that'll guide us through our land use development. And really, as I said, the goal is to take a comprehensive approach and be proactive and get our local rules and regulations into a place that we can guide development within the form that's the community wants and thinks is appropriate. So we'll try. I think I skipped within 5 minutes.
Excellent.
So happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you.
So I've sorted the questions and into little packets, so I'm going to try and deal with them in clumps. First of all, Dollar General seems to be a biggie, so I think I can answer most of these, but if I can't, I'll turn to my experts here. What's the town's position concerning Dollar General type retailers, and does the town have the ability to influence types of retail use? I think it's safe to say that the town seems to be fairly united, both residents and part-time residents and most of the town officials saying we're not really interested in Dollar General type developments. We don't see that as being really beneficial, and I do think that if it were some other type of development, maybe a Trader Joe's or something, it would have been different, but it's not, and so it's so we're doing what we can, and unfortunately we do have some large parcels that are developable. So what Paul's talking about is sort of a town-wide effort to say, hey, we've got to get a grip on this quickly and figure out what we want the town to look like and then design our zoning bylaws to fit that. Unfortunately, what some other towns have tried to do is do a no big box store or no large chain store bylaw, and that is illegal and doesn't work in Massachusetts, so that eventually gets defeated. So we have to be a little more clever about it and come up with what should it look like, what should the size be, those types of things, and so that's what we're shooting for, okay? And I think we're hoping that the Cape Cod Commission will be very helpful in that effort. It's My next question is, can you please ask the group by a show of hands who's concerned about Dollar General and wants a further meeting about it? We'll certainly give you an update in August, but who's concerned about Dollar General? Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. You don't have to be a politician to read the crowd here. That's another one. Update. Why does the zoning board feel a Dollar General store has value to Eastham? It doesn't. The zoning board really can't speak about what they think or don't think about a pending matter, but the Board of Selectmen did speak and did speak strongly. We asked the Cape Cod Commission for their assistance, and they agreed that it was a significant development and that we've had lots of significant development, at least in proposal form, and that we're a small town and we need their assistance, and they are coming to our rescue, and hopefully whether or not we get to say no to this Dollar General, we will certainly be able to make it better, look better, and fit in a little better. So again, we're seeking to control.
Can I add something? Just to underscore something. Only reason that the zoning board had the Dollar General case was because of a request for a special permit over the number of parking spaces. It's that sort of specific thing that we usually do. But I would add that there was an initial communication from the Cape Cod Commission before the whole thing got referred to them, and they were seriously critical of design, placement, whatever, with respect to the proposal.
Good.
Okay, so changing subjects, what was the percentage of affordable units to the total number of units? And I'm assuming this would be on the Stratford Tea Time proposal. Only 10 of those units are market rate. Most of those units are in the 30% affordable range, so very low income housing. And we would get credit for 100% of those units towards our affordable housing goal.
Yes, you mentioned low income. Is it low income or is it affordable?
There is a difference, and less than 30% of the median income is quite low in my mind.
Some were 30, some were 30, some were 60.
Some were 30, some were 60. Okay, some general questions. Has the work been done for residents to obtain a reduction of a premium of insurance due to the installation of fire hydrants? Yes, the work has been done. All of that information was to the inspectors, and the inspection was completed before town meeting of this year. We have a snag in the regulatory approval process right now that has nothing to do with what the town of Eastham has done or not done. We're simply waiting for the rating agency to rate us. We're 9 now. We're hoping to get to at least a 6 on the first round and then improve that over time as we get more residents hooked up to water. However, I will say, because the fire chief isn't here, we had our first major fire that would have been a total loss fire on the Red Barn restaurant. Their vent, yes, right? Their vent over their fryolator caught fire. It had been recently cleaned and they missed something and it caught fire, and it was a 5-alarm fire. We received help from several different towns to combat it. They ended up only being closed for 2.5 weeks because they have a fire hydrant right in front, and our fire department was able to put out that fire very, very quickly. So that's a perfect example of what the tool that we have now that we didn't have before. But yes, we're working on that rating. And also I need to tell you that due to Paul Lack's hard work, we also have a reduced rate of 10% reduction in flood insurance for anyone in a coastal area, because he's done so much good work with storm management. The Bridge Road water pipe is, of course, it is an eyesore. We understand that. It is the problem that we faced is that we are the last utility to come into town. And that bridge, there's no other way, there's no way to go under that bridge because of the soils. We have to go over it, which is why Verizon, Comcast, gas company, everybody's pipe goes over that bridge. Ours is the last one, ours is the biggest, and of course, it's the ugliest. So what the Board of Selectmen has directed me to do is to write a letter to Verizon, who owns the lesser pipe, to see if we can trade places with them on the bridge, which would lower our pipe and make theirs go off a little to the right. Theirs is smaller, it wouldn't be as visible. And we're currently working on that. We have had a response from Verizon that they're looking at it and they'll get back to us, which is new news. Even Bill doesn't know that. Just happened. How much of the annual water debt will be covered by water bill revenue? Right now, that's still an issue that the Board of Water Commissioners have to take a look at over time. The proposal that Sheila had made was, and we're sticking to that plan right now, is that for the first few years, none of the debt will be on users because it's simply 459 customers. It's too small a system. So we're waiting to see what the revenue, if the revenue projections are what they should be, and it looks good so far. So we're thinking by year 3 to 5, the water system will be picking up some of its debt and saving money towards future capital. So we're going to share the expense. Current planning for town sewers. We are not planning currently for town sewers. We really don't have a place to put a septic plant. The town of Orleans has been struggling with their downtown septic issues. We were hoping to partner with them on some of our needs, but they are saying that they can't build a plant that has the capacity for both towns at this point. So we are continuing to work with the county and the other towns to develop our own alternative wastewater plans, which will be brought to the board. They just had a work session on it, and we're going to be continuing through to try some pilot programs in Salt Pond. All kinds of, they have this permeable barrier, which we can actually put into the ground that blocks septage from going into the ponds and other areas. So we're going to try all kinds of alternatives and continue working on studying different alternatives. One of the good news about being not so current on the wastewater is that all the other towns are spending a fortune looking at some of these options, which we get to sort of observe and cherry pick which ones might be working better than others. I just learned yesterday the Cape Cod Commission is looking at cranberry bogs and what cranberry bogs can do to absorb nitrogen. So very interesting. So there's all kinds of alternatives, and I think waiting a bit on wastewater will be a good thing for us. It will give us some more, the benefit of some additional studies that we don't necessarily have to pay for. The water project is divided into 5 steps. Where are we for the development of the water project? If that's a personal house issue, I can deal with it after, or we can look it up on the website for you. But most of the planning and development is complete. I'd say 80% complete. So we are now just in construction mode for the next few years. And again, we're pacing construction based on how much we want to borrow at any given time. We don't want to borrow, the whole chunk of money at one time, because that would affect the tax rate too adversely. So we're trying to pace our borrowing to about $15 to $20 million for each sub-phase of phase 2. Some general questions. While purchasing this is a good one. While purchasing my transfer station beach stickers, there was a family in front of me complaining that that all the transfer stickers after the first should be $30. They said their East Tam home is in a trust with 15 people on it. My question is there a limit per household on residential transfer and beach stickers? Yes, a trust is allowed 2. So after 2, they would then have to pay at a higher rate, and that's what people are complaining about. It simply doesn't make sense for us to have 15 residents stickers. I don't see how that would make sense to anyone except someone who has 15 people in the trust. The status of the town's application to change the fire rating, I answered that one. What can be done about a very messy property? I think I might be able to guess which one this is. The only thing we can do is to sort of focus our regulatory efforts on enforcement. And in that particular property, we do, and it makes some effort to comply, and then we lose that progress. So we just met with the town's attorney last week on this property. We are going into active enforcement in Superior Court. We're hoping that we will prevail and that the property will get cleaned up. But please know that we're not ignoring those, and we are trying to enforce whenever possible. The second thing I wanted to tell you is that I have advised our building inspector that I feel it's a priority that we need to enforce more of the sign bylaws, and we have some messy properties along Route 6 that I think we really need to start enforcing a little bit more strongly. And I think one of the issues with that is that our small regulatory departments have been pretty much in full gear and beyond this past year, so we're trying to keep up, and just wanted to let you know that we're working on that. I have a whole bunch of questions that I think are more on the safety line, signage, yield signage, a button for crossing Aspinet Road on Route 6. Those are all DOT, Department of Transportation for the state of Massachusetts issues. Whenever we get into Route 6, we seem to have a battle with the DOT about what we need versus what they want. They consider Route 6 a highway. We consider Route 6 a highway that happens to cause a lot of accidents and problems, that we'd like the speed slowed down, that we'd like any effort made to make it more safe for our residents and our visitors. So just to let you know, the Board of Selectmen and FinCom will be meeting with our state reps in the fall, hopefully, and one of the issues is that Route 6 corridor and the DOT in terms of stormwater, but I'll add this to the list of concerns. Yep.
Talking about DOT. Speaking of DOT, I'm on the executive committee for the Cape Cod Selectmen's Association, which is an association of all the selectmen on the Cape. And we met the other night and put together our agenda for the coming year. And one of the items on the agenda is to have the Secretary of the DOT come down and speak to the Cape Cod Selectmen's Association so we can start raising some of these issues, you know, and have the joint sort of might of all the selectmen on the Cape. So that is something that's in progress. I don't think Jackie was aware of.
No, thank you. Thank you, Bill. Another one, coastal vegetation variances for houses on the water. Why are these being given? You know, as town administrator, I get complaints on both sides of this one. Some people think the Conservation Commission is enforcing too much, some too little. I think we're trying very badly to strike a balance, or we're trying very diligently to strike a balance between what a property owner might want and need and what suits the environment and draws within the lines of the Wetlands Protection Act. So that's a constant sort of issue for us that we're trying to manage over time. And I can also bring our conservation agent, Shana, with me to talk more about some conservation issues and Wetlands Protection Act things if you want me to at either the August meeting or later. I'm definitely going to take the safety questions that we have, and I'll have Ed Kulhaywick, our Chief of Police, come in August and do a little summary of some of those answers for you. And I think I've gotten to most of them. Any more questions?
I just have a question on these projects on 6. Isn't it a problem with the traffic? I mean, it seems to me there's
yes, and I think one of the things we're asking the panel that Paul's talking about and the Cape Cod Commission is, how the regulations work is that when each project comes in, we ask for a traffic study and they do a traffic study, but it's on what the impact of their particular development would be. And what we're saying is, we've had 7 of these. So 7 of these added together clearly makes more of an impact than any one would, and how do we deal with that? And so, you find these regulations that have loopholes kind of thing, and that's what we're trying to deal with is, if we have all 7 of these developments, does that trigger something that the DOT would have to address in terms of another light or, less curb cuts or something?
Jackie, can I add something?
Sure.
One of the other problems is, this board, we did a lot of traffic studies this past year. One of the issues is that when the traffic study comes to us, it is, as Jackie said, based upon this particular development or this particular application. Collectively, it's a problem. What the studies tend to do is not take full consideration of the issues of the summer traffic. And so they independently, they start off with the same documents that everybody uses to create a study, and it's basically what's the morning traffic pattern and what's the evening traffic pattern. There is no consideration for a timetable. Okay, and the issues that come up around that.
What's the going to Provincetown traffic? Yeah.
And so, I mean, as Jackie said, it is the Department of Transportation's road, and so we can't sit there and say, we'd like a stoplight here, but we'd like to have these stoplights timed differently. That's what it's a big issue there. There's a whole bunch of problems, but a lot of it is the methodologies being used to measure the traffic problem.
The other thing I wanted to tell you is regarding safety and DOT, to follow up. The town has been working for 5 years with the National Seashore and other groups to get a bike crossing across Route 6 on Governor Prince Road. We've had a lot of issues there. We have the grant from the federal government. We have, the study's already been done. We just can't get that done. It's just dragged on forever. So that's what happens when we start to, even when we're aligned with the federal government, we still have issues with that third leg of the stool, which is state government. So it's complicated. Yes, sir.
Regarding tea time, I'm from Connecticut. We've had experience with developers like this, namely Avalon, and it came down to not trying to deny the application for a particular development on whether the development had safety concerns or environmental concerns. Everything else was irrelevant. Yet your letter talks about the quaint nature of the town instead of citing what probably is going to have to be your reasons for denying this, which is safety, health, environmental.
Except that, our own attorney and the traffic studies that have been done are saying, as Ed pointed out, are saying that it is safe, that it is fine, that it's not going to cause too much traffic. So that's where we are. We're going up against them whenever we can.
Just in response, Ed read you a particular segment of an exceptionally long denial letter. The reasons for, actually traffic was an issue and sort of fell out of our principal concerns. It is primarily the question of massing, but there are safety issues related to that, and I can assure you that they were raised in the denial letter.
Good.
Yes.
Just a point on that, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and many cities and towns, of course, have negative relative to Chapter 40B settlements. About 2 years ago, the Sunderland ZBA had a decision that was totally against the town, specifically limited towns from basically raising issues such as you don't have a ladder truck tall enough to reach the top of the building, and basically that decision took away almost all the power of the town to say no. And so it's a very, very thin line to walk
know, even though we have, the ZBA has denied it and we are in litigation trying to oppose it, we are also meeting to try and reshape it. So I can't give you any more details than that, but there are many prongs to this, and we're working on every prong we can.
Does the National Seashore have any influence on, or can they strongly suggest what our town should look like without us getting into something where they would have?
It's a good question. I'm sure they would say that they don't have any jurisdiction outside of their boundary, and this is not, none of these developments are in their boundary, but it would certainly be prudent of us to ask them, especially during the strategic planning process.
You could go through your Senate, local senator or representative.
Some of you are already aware of this. If there is a property on the seashore guideline says you cannot expand it by more than 50%.
That's true.
One of the things that this town did, and it was before, I didn't move here full-time until 2005, but one of the things that this town very fortunately did was build that into our zoning bylaws. Wellfleet and Truro did not. And if you've been following any of that history, particularly the Klein House, look and see what happened. So the answer is, we borrowed and put into local law one of their guidelines. So that was helpful, and that has, in a way, helped us keep the town more in the way many of us wanted.
I'm just curious, speaking of Truro and Wellfleet, how are they managing, do they have affordable care housing?
Yes, I think Truro is a bit, both towns are ahead of us in terms of our percentage. We've been focusing on single-family housing, and I think it's very difficult to develop enough single-family homes to meet our percentage. So we do need to do rentals. We know we needed to, and that's why we developed Purcell, because we knew that we needed to have some options that would get our numbers up faster. Unfortunately, this property was for sale for a long time, and then all of a sudden it became attractive for affordable housing, and some developer came along and bought it. And that's why we have to be ready, for what is the next thing. I mean, none of us who have driven by every day that parcel that Dollar General is going to develop, if you drive by it, you would never think that that's a 3-acre parcel. You'd think it would have been someone's driveway or a tiny little spot. So I think, we have to take a look at all of those factors, and Paul and his staff are doing that.
I just wanted to comment that those of you may know, but Sheila Vanderhoff is now a member of the Board of Directors of the Massachusetts School Building Authority and continues to serve in that capacity. And you already mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting, that the improvements for Nassau Regional were part of her consideration. So she served not only this town, but everybody else too.
And she's the president of the Cape Cod Community College Board of Directors, and a bank. Yeah, she's not having it. I sent her a picture the other day because the town administrator very recently retired of Wellfleet. I ran into him outside of the Hole-in-One Donut Shop in his cute little sports car with a little hat on, and I took a picture of him and I sent it to Sheila and I said, I think he's having a better retirement than you. She wasn't amused. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. I know Sheila had told me she had a long list of books she wanted to read too, but right, I didn't think that's not happening. Thank you. I think that we should have no fear that our town administrator, our town is in good hands with our new administrator. And thank you very much, members, for coming to attend. I hope to see you in August. May I ask for adjournment?
Second.
Second?
All in favor? I know. I'll just say one thing. Go ahead.